The concepts of heritage and landscape have changed over time. Cultural heritage, community, and territory are considered a strongly interconnected system in European context. In recent decades, we shifted from publishing cultural heritage to an inclusive dimension that promotes cultural and social accessibility, as well as physical accessibility to goods. From considering good as belonging exclusively to history and the past, to valuing its role in the present time and in society, from the good itself and its value to the perception that individuals and communities have of goods. Therefore, the intrinsic value of a good can vary greatly depending on who evaluates it. And furthermore, from the static knowledge of good to its dynamic interpretation based on the interrelationships between populations and landscapes, between goods and communities. Finally, from the heritage and landscape of excellence to the heritages and landscapes of proximity, recognized even by small groups. In this way, the identification of heritage has become a collective and ongoing process which can involve different categories of citizens, such as associations, groups of young or elderly people, residents of a neighborhood, members of an ethnic or religious group, and so on. The same applies to knowledge processes, interpretation processes, and communication and sharing of cultural heritage. The proximity heritage, due to its lesser recognizability and notoriety, is fragile. Therefore, even for its care and protection, the commitment of what we call heritage communities will be fundamental. We all have a shared responsibility for cultural heritage and the landscape. The ability to freely participate in cultural life, derive benefits from cultural heritage, and contribute to its enrichment are fundamental rights of every citizen. This principle was affirmed in 2005 by the Faro Convention. In the spirit of the Convention, it is therefore important, first of all, to make cultural heritage accessible to everyone, not only in physical and economic terms, but also in sensory, cognitive, and cultural terms. And then encourage each and every citizen to actively participate in the process of identification, study, interpretation, protection, conservation, and communication of cultural heritage. It follows that education in cultural heritage is a fundamental right of every citizen, and that this is more effective if learning is rooted in the territory of belonging and is therefore linked to places of life. But how to guarantee this right? How to educate about cultural heritage? How to involve citizens in the processes of identification, interpretation, and care of heritage? What role can the school play in this process? And which discipline should deal with education on heritage and landscape? The answer comes from the recommendation concerning heritage education formulated in 1998 by the Council of Europe. In this document, cultural heritage is defined as any testimony, material or immaterial, of human behavior and any trace of human activities in the natural environment. In view of this complexity and breadth of interpretation, we cannot think of education and heritage as a discipline, but rather, and I quote again from the recommendation, as a cross-curricular educational approach that includes active educational methods and employs the widest variety of ways of communication and expression. Heritage education is therefore transversal to disciplines and aims at the construction of an active and responsible citizenship. We can add that education on heritage must be accompanied by education through heritage and landscape, which combines the cognitive dimension with the affective one and transforms heritage into a means for transdisciplinary work that is enriched by intergenerational and intercultural exchange, thereby enhancing the educational experience. To accomplish this, heritage items must be connected to the experiences and pasts of individuals and groups, as well as to the context in which they are immersed. This provides young individuals the chance to reinterpret heritage, constructing a personal connection with their places of residence and enhancing their cognitive and emotional experience. The recommendation on education in cultural heritage undoubtedly represents a crucial point in the process of developing a common European policy. However, more than 20 years later, it is not easy to verify its concrete repercussions. There is still a lot to be done to create an effective and suitable pedagogy of heritage that takes into account the landscape in all its complexity. In this perspective, the role of the school appears fundamental. Being the main educational agency and having widespread coverage, the school has the opportunity to bring citizens in training closer to their territory, bringing education outside the boundaries of school buildings. Heritage education cannot therefore be limited to sporadic experiences, to goods and contexts of excellence, but must be transdisciplinary, inclusive, and practicable in every place, including ordinary and degraded contexts. It is therefore necessary to develop methodologies and strategies to build educational processes that connect education to local heritage with education for sustainability and citizenship education. In summary, cultural heritage is a set of values in continuous evolution, linked to territories and communities. Education on heritage and cultural landscape cannot be limited to excellent assets, but must address the different cultural expressions connected to a territory and the communities present in it. It is a right and must be widespread, formal and informal, and implemented on the territory. Finally, it must be transdisciplinary, inclusive, and practicable everywhere.